There's a huge amount of discussion about sustainability out there in the public space. We talk about the moral reasons, the scientific reasons for being sustainable. We talk very little about the actual business case for sustainability. But I can't think of anyone more suited to have this conversation than my guest here, Simon Davey of Agilico. Welcome, Simon.
Hi, Anthony. Good morning.
How are you doing today? You all right?
Very good, thank you.
Brilliant. Well, let's dive straight in. Simon, could you tell us a little bit about you and your organisation?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. And Anthony, thank you very much for the invitation to join the webinar today. So I'm fortunate enough to be the chief exec of a business called Agilico. And Agilico is a workplace technology business, a business that has three discrete divisions. Agile Print, which is our managed print services division. Agile Docs, which is our software and consulting division. And Agile Tech, which is our IT and telephony division. Those last two divisions are really focused on selling our proprietary software to our customers. And the first division, our largest by some way, so we have revenues about 55 million in our Agile Print division, is really focused on sustainability more than anything else. And I guess will be the greater focus in this conversation today.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great introduction. And for completeness, Circularity First is both an advisor for sustainability strategy, but also a provider of more sustainable IT solutions. Well, Simon, over the last 18 months, we've been working together. But before we got started, it was really useful to get deep context of your business, what was going on for your business when we started. Could you give us a bit of a flavour of the recent history for Agilico and what's been going on for you and what are your priorities?
Sure. So we set out about 5 years ago to build a business. So we have made 11 acquisitions over the last 5 years. That's pre-COVID, during COVID and post-COVID, we were making those acquisitions. So it's really, really busy 5 years buying and integrating those businesses. And our focus has been very much on building a great workplace technology business. And increasingly over the last couple of years, as you know, we've had this real desire to focus on sustainability and to bring that to the forefront of our business.
I mean, really interesting to have gone through that journey. Acquisitions, COVID obviously rocked a lot of businesses and really changed the kind of way we saw things. You're operating in quite a mature marketplace. What I was struck by when I first came across your business, and I don't want to big you up too much, but it was well-run, highly profitable business. You've got quite a big customer base. I think it's around 18,000 customers. Is that right?
Yeah, 11,000 customers, 450 staff across the UK. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. So you've got a business that's going pretty well. I guess why did you think sustainability might be something that could increase the value of your organisation? What sort of triggered that initial thought process?
So I actually think there was a very small step before sustainability really came to the forefront. So during COVID, there were quite a few reflection moments, as I'm sure many business owners and operators had. And I kind of sat there one evening thinking, we're a really decent sized business now, and we probably need to take on more and focus on kind of doing other things, different things. Because when you're a startup business, you're very much focused on generating revenue. And then when you start generating revenue, you then start thinking about making sure you've got a good team behind you to maintain those revenues. And then perhaps you then start focusing on the customer service side and maintaining the customer relationships. And then as a business owner, you probably focus on profitability. And we've managed to do all of those things already. So as a much bigger business, we've felt a greater responsibility to do more things and to take ourselves up to the next level. So having just come out of COVID, we were concerned about staff welfare, wanted to make sure the staff felt looked after. I remember we came up with an idea to create a team on the Strava app, the exercise app, which you probably know, being an avid cyclist yourself. And we set about trying to encourage people to get out and exercise. I think we've got 120 members of staff on that now. We set competitions like running from as a group from Land's End to John O'Groats, then running to Tokyo, then running around the world, just to try and get people active and out and about. And that landed really well with staff, and it was the trigger point really for trying to do more than just run a business in the normal way. Because shortly after that, we had a couple of members of staff saying to us, well, look, if we're going to go down this path now, which we agree on, I have a vehicle, which is a diesel or a petrol vehicle. Maybe the business should start thinking about switching our fleet, which is about 140 in size, to electric and hybrid vehicles. And I thought, well, actually, having now spoken to staff about trying to mature as a business and do the right things, that made an awful lot of sense. So we started out looking at the vehicle fleet and swapping all the vehicles over. So now, really proud actually that 80% of those vehicles are now hybrid or electric vehicles, and by the end of the year, all of our vehicles will be, which would be great. And then I remember the staff saying to us, well, if we're doing that, we probably need to make sure that the infrastructure, the offices, is in a good place. So we need charging points in all of our offices. Okay, yeah, but probably the right thing to do as well. So let's do that. Then it moved very quickly on to, we have a lot of offices and perhaps they need to be upgraded and be made more efficient. So we invested in solar panels in some of our sites as well. We consolidated some of the sites to more energy efficient buildings. This week we are moving from our a very old site in Aberdeen to a brand new site. Ironically, for the capital of energy for the UK in Aberdeen, we have a site there currently where the energy bill is greater than the rent. So we're moving, yeah, exactly. So we've just moved this week to a brand new site, an A-rated site in Aberdeen. So we really tried hard to do all the right things as we'd already become really quite a mature business. But as people are probably thinking now, some of that must have come at quite a great cost. And frankly, it was expensive to do those things. But if you're trying to run a business in a responsible way, ultimately you have to kind of move in that direction. And we just needed to figure out a way of paying for it all. And that's where it became really interesting, as you know.
Perfect. It's really good context there. So obviously there was some sort of, feelings of the moral obligation that we should be doing the right thing. There was some sort of pressure, perhaps is too strong a word, but there was a feeling from your employees that there was something that you should be doing, which is sort of two sides to the same coin, really.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really useful. So let's get into kind of perhaps the meat of this then. So, maybe you could talk us through a little bit about the what and the how of the journey that we've been on together to go from doing this piece that is kind of doing the right thing, perhaps expensive, to actually incorporating sustainability as part of your core strategy.
Sure. So we had started to sell some recycled, refurbished equipment about 18 months ago, probably, and doing it on a really small scale. And if I'm honest with you, there was no strategic thinking behind that. We kind of stumbled across it a couple of years ago, 18 months ago, as I said. And then I started to see some of the numbers that were coming out of these particular sales, that we were able to take equipment that had been used and bring it back into our workshops, and with our very highly skilled engineers, refurbish the devices to very high quality, and then reuse the equipment and put it back into the field. And we saw some of the margins on these devices were actually really quite strong. And it was great for the customer because they were at a lower price point than a brand new machine. And I remember our chairman putting me to one side after the board meeting when I decided to talk about this. And he did exactly what a good chairman should do. And he said, you need to think a lot more strategically about this, because I think you might be onto something here. And I'm going to introduce you to someone, Anthony at Circularity First, because I think if you listen to what he had done in his business, you will be able to completely pivot what you are doing in your industry. And it challenged me, as he should, as a chairman, to go away and really think hard about what this could mean for the business, and to make sure I spent plenty of time with you to understand the concept of sustainability, because I was very, very new into it. And really didn't know the subject matter very well at all. Relative to you, I'm still miles behind, but trying to play catch up quickly. But I think meeting you, understanding how you pivoted your business was a game changer for us.
Well, you're a quick learner, Simon. I'll give you that. And of course, one of our parts of our organisation has done that very similar kind of journey in remanufactured technology for networking equipment. So I guess that's where it combines. I remember quite early on, you were quite quick to want to push this out in front across your whole organisation, right? You had a sales event and you said, like, I'm ready. I want to launch this. You're almost sort of, let's get it out there, and then we'll build all the detail and the material behind it. But let's set some goals. Let's set some ambition. Can you sort of talk?
Quite impatient, aren't I? You picked that up quite quickly, didn't you?
Yeah. So sort of talk me through, because I mean that must have been a little bit of a, well, I don't know, was it a scary moment? I shouldn't put words in your mouth. How did it feel to go, okay, there's something here, I believe in it, like creating that momentum, but putting it on stage and sort of taking it to a whole sales force? How did that feel, and how did you approach that, and how did you get in the right place to do it?
It did feel uncomfortable. It honestly did, because I was talking about something that I knew a little bit about, and I really only like talking about something I know a lot about.
Yeah.
But I bounced a lot of ideas off the senior leadership team, so there wasn't me going off on a tangent on my own. This was me engaging with the senior leadership team to say, I think we're onto something here, and I think we could do some really great things. So we challenged each other around that, and we had a sales conference coming up. So we decided as a senior leadership team to launch the concept of selling more remanufactured equipment at that sales conference. It became a central theme at that sales conference. But interestingly, we didn't go to the conference and say, you must do this, because it felt to me like I should allow people the time to really digest it. So we put it out there as an option, and we created some go-to-market kind of collateral, some sales collateral, marketing collateral around it as well. And then we just let the sales teams, and then subsequently in a quarterly call with staff, the option and the time to digest what we meant by sustainability and introduce the concept of the Sustainable Development Goals, which before meeting you a couple of years ago, I hadn't even heard of. And it almost embarrassed to say that, but this was a real education piece for me. But I did go out and launch the Sustainable Development Goals to the company and said, look, we're going to create this hub for you internally. If you want to go onto this site, you can. If you want to learn a bit more about it, you can. But I would like to run the business in such a way that we can contribute towards these 17 goals and make our business better. I just threw that out there, frankly, hoping, I guess, that some of our 450 staff would latch onto it and go, feels like the right thing to do, actually, and we can actually potentially help. That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, so I think they're two quite brave and bold steps that you took there. So one, to go straight in front of the sales force and do that. I remember you very kindly invited me to kind of do a bit of an ignite session. So get them to see where the impacts were in technology, to see their opportunity to contribute to that. But I can remember actually us having a very specific conversation about the broader launch and how you wanted to share all 17 SDGs with your team, and basically say, which of these do you think are most important? And I thought that was a very bold step, and I can remember almost hesitating, going, "Oh, do I think that's the right move?" But you saw it clearly, and actually, I think you had some really interesting feedback from that, right? To talk us through kind of how people responded to this once you launched this in the organisation, and what kind of energy it created, and I guess what other benefits it brought to the table for you.
So it was interesting, because when you look at the 17 goals, there was one in particular I looked at, and it was life below water. I thought, how on earth can a company like ours contribute to life below water? And I remember that guy in the Southwest, he used to be a diver in the army, and he said to me, do you know how much plastic sits in the ocean? He said, it is shocking. It's an absolute disgrace. And I said, okay, what do you want to do about it? He said, we need to stop buying in plastic water bottles for a start in all the offices. Okay, I can do that right now. So we implemented that immediately. It went great. He said, and the shrink wrap that we put around the devices, he said, all of that should be biodegradable. And I went, okay, go away and source a biodegradable shrink wrap and find one that doesn't cost any more than we currently pay. And so he and a colleague of his in the Southwest went and did just that. So immediately there was something that we had started to do that we would never have done if we hadn't launched the Sustainable Development Goals, which is great. And then, as things always do, it then moved to the next stage, which was another member of staff said to me, well, my daughter actually had written a book called Jessie the Jellyfish. And I never thought I'd ever mention that in a presentation or to anyone. But this book was for primary school children, and it was about how we take plastic out of the ocean. So now what we do is when we sell a remanufactured device to a customer, it gets delivered to the customer in biodegradable shrink wrap, and we give a book to the primary school that's buying a refurbished device, and we're explaining why they're getting the book. And that message has landed so brilliantly with a lot of the schools that we work with. And because there's a real nice feeling about it. It's much more than just, here's a multifunctional device for your school. There's a real feeling behind it. And I think that has made really quite a big difference, actually. And of course, then when that happened, we then had staff trying to contribute to other areas, such as climate action. And they wanted to make sure we'd committed to achieving net zero from our internal operations. They wanted us to really think hard about our own production. So that's when they said, should we set some goals on how many devices that we sell should be re-engineered, remanufactured, recycled? And I said, do you know what? It's a really great idea. So can the majority of the devices that we sell be remanufactured? And pretty much from a standard start, now we're up to the point, in fact, April results, when they came through, I was astonished. There's 39% of the devices that we sold in April were refurbished devices from pretty much a standing start to 12 to 18 months earlier, which was an incredible achievement. And it's important to say at this point, what would typically happen is a device would get manufactured brilliantly in Asia, typically Japan or China usually. That device would then get shipped halfway across the world to Europe. The device would then be used by a customer for 5 years. And then, and this is the really shocking bit, at the end of the 5 years, the device would find its way into a distribution channel in the UK, and that distributor was forced to then sell that outside of the UK, and that device would then go back on a boat either to Africa or the Middle East or Asia again. Can you imagine the amount of CO2 that's being created by getting these devices from one part of the world to the other? And I said, this is absolute nonsense. These devices are great. We have a brilliant engineering team. So let's get those devices back. Let's go and let's re-engineer them. And let's say to the customer, look, here's a device which is as good as new. Let's extend the life of these assets and stop being so wasteful. And the message is landing brilliantly. And the more and more tenders that we see has this type of stuff in it. And we feel like we are making some really important steps for our business, because now the margins in our business have risen in the last 12 months by 3%. Our gross margins risen by 3%. And I am absolutely certain that would not have happened if we hadn't started to think in a completely different way about our business. And now, now the engineers are saying, well, maybe we can, even the devices that we can't remanufacture because they really are end of life, let's figure out what we do with those devices. Are we able to harvest the parts in those devices so we don't have to throw those in the bin? And then with those devices that where there's a shell left, let's make sure they go somewhere where they are disposed of in a really kind of ethical way. And I'm actually going to a site next week, actually, where I want to speak with the managing director and follow one of our devices through to the last 100 yards, as I call it, to see what happens to them. So I'm really, as you can probably see, I'm really quite obsessed about this sort of stuff now. And it's just really interesting to see how it's gone from a very mature, traditional business to a business which is just thinking completely differently for the benefit of everyone, frankly.
Yeah, I love that. It touches so many points. I mean, first of all, this comes from a bit of an understanding of where all these impacts come from. So most of us don't necessarily stop to think about the extraction of all the materials, the manufacturing process, that whole transportation piece that you're talking about. Printers and copiers, there is a big amount of plastic. They're big devices, right? So do people connect with the fact that where does that plastic go if we don't find a way to reuse it? So that thoughtfulness is really important. But I really liked your very precise example there of 3% on gross margin. Like that's an average across your whole business. That's a meaningful increase in profitability. And you said you're still trying to drive those numbers further, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think what was really important when I look back at when we kind of started is just making sure that all the stakeholders were aligned on this. So was there buy-in from the board? Absolutely. Was there a demand from the customers and from a certain customer set, particularly those bigger customers, that absolutely was a growing demand within that customer set. So when tenders were being presented, they would absolutely want to know what we were doing as a business and how we could help them achieve their sustainability goals. And increasingly, it's moving from bigger customers to the medium-sized customers to the smaller customers. I'm absolutely convinced that all customers will ultimately get to this point where they're really thinking about what they are buying. And that consumer behavior, business behavior, those buying decisions are definitely changing. Well, the bit I wasn't sure would work was how would suppliers feel about this? To be honest with you, because the suppliers and manufacturers traditionally want to sell new equipment.
That's right.
And I made a pitch to them, a really compelling pitch to them, talking about this process of these machines being transferred halfway around the world twice. And I said, look, I'm going to be the answer to a lot of your problems here, and I'm going to make you look really good by doing this, and it solves a lot of problems. And two of the manufacturers in particular, Konica Minolta and Ricoh, for us have been absolutely superb in making sure that we've got a really solid supply chain. And that's where it's gone from a very tactical initiative to a very strategic initiative, where we've got all the stakeholders lined up and where this has become the core of our business. So that moment where our chairman took us to one side and rightly challenged me to think differently and made the introduction to you has really shaped the business, and what I think will really define our future over the next 5 to 10 years.
That's such an important point. And I think we see this a lot. So when we're working with the leadership teams, is this starting point of ESG teams and sustainability as a sort of side project, if you like, but the real win and the business case for sustainability really only comes in once you incorporate into core strategy. Like when we talk now, it's a lens that you look at everything your business does through. It's not that's something on the agenda. It forms its own part of all the conversations that you have. It's central. It's woven into everything you do now, and it's woven into your thinking of what next. I'm interested. So, what other kind of outcomes have you kind of the tangible ones? You've talked about gross profit. We've talked a little bit about employees. Are there any other kind of outcomes that you would sort of put your hands on and say that this helps me prove the business case for sustainability in what you've done?
I want to get to a point where I can say, this is now helping me bringing even more talent to the business. I'm not quite there with it yet, but I think we will get to the point where we say, look, this is our purpose as a business. Okay, this is what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I definitely know that it's helping us win new business. Absolutely helping us win new business, because very few of our competitors are taking this to market or are able to take it to market because they don't have the scale. So that's been a big business case win. And I think I will pretty soon be able to get to a point where say we've now been able to hire this talent because of what we stand for as a business. I don't think I'm far away from that.
Excellent. And what about customers? How have customers? Yeah, you talked about the sort of general positive approach. When you're offering them something that's non-new, and we spend a lot of time on this with customers. I remember we talked about it a lot. What's the engagement like now with the customer? Has that changed much since you started?
It's really interesting. So, as I said earlier, on the tender documents we receive, they want to know what you're doing. Okay, but then when it comes to pitching a product, and pitching a remanufactured piece of equipment, there's definitely a healthy amount of skepticism. Now, to be fair, I was in that boat when I started learning this.
Yep.
And it's just part of the journey we have to go through. But I remember we had a big university up in Scotland come and visit our workshop. And we said, look, you're nervous about taking remanufactured equipment. So we kind of did the Coca-Cola test. I remember bringing the guy brought out 2 machines and said to the customer, you tell me which one is new. And they got it wrong.
Yeah.
So that is, we are so confident in our engineering teams. They're brilliant people, work incredibly hard. There's an hours refurbishing these machines. So this isn't about polishing an MFD. This is about breaking it down. There's about 30 different checkpoints that we go through so that we can then take it back out to the customer. So we are that confident. We are so confident in what our engineering teams are doing. And I think the more we can promote that to the customers, the more confident that they will get in making those purchase decisions. So it becomes not just a tick box exercise in a tender document, but a genuine desire to increasingly buy remanufactured equipment.
So there is an element there of needing to lead a bit, isn't there? So you said, I think most people will say, sure, if it's more sustainable, but everything else is the same, I'm happy. Yeah, but often you need to kind of educate why. And I think we spent a bit of time talking about the circular economy. It's just a lens to look at the how of what you're doing here, right? So it's how do you actually approach this? You've talked about extending the life of technology, refurbishing technology. You talk about actually, even when it's broken, how do you get the component parts and get them reused? All of those are kind of R's in the circular economy and form a really important part of this journey for customers. And briefly, one of the things I know you're kind of working on now is the kind of the external validation piece, right? So how do we make sure that these aren't just words? Oh, it's more sustainable. That there's measures there, and I know you've gone through your own carbon measurement journey. I think you were looking at EcoVadis at some point as an external, as a whole organization. How are we doing? And I think we've been talking recently about some proprietary research, kind of literally prove like how much more sustainable is a refurbished device that you produce versus a brand new one, because ultimately customers need some proof points, right? It's easy to throw out a lot of words, but we want these hard measures, whether it's an increase in gross margin, a decrease in carbon or materials use. I think it's the tangibility that's really important, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And actually, one of the areas that is difficult is this external validation point, because although we can get the amount of, we know the amount of CO2 created by every single device that we sell, we get that directly from the manufacturer. So, and that's great. So we know how much we can avoid by doing the refurbishment piece. But when you start looking into EcoVadis, BCert, SBTI, it's just it's a real minefield to try and get your head around that stuff, because you're trying to run the business, and you're also trying to get this external validation, and then you're thinking, so which one do I choose? Do I go down SBTI route and BCert route, EcoVadis route? And everyone has a different view on that, and I don't actually think there is one right answer. I think more importantly, stakeholders just want to know that you're doing the right thing, you're going in the right direction, and on that, I know we absolutely are.
Yeah, no, definitely. And look, we'll continue to try and support you and help guide kind of which of those are pragmatic, because I think, there's, as you said, there's a lot of heavy lifting. A lot of these sort of stamps of approval are sort of defined for very big organizations, and not every organization has the resources or the energy to apply to that. But I think this brings us on quite nicely to kind of think perhaps a little about the future. So obviously we've been on a journey for around 18 months. I think you're quite convinced and clearly quite passionate about sustainability now, what it means for your organization. What does this sort of near or the future hold for you? And what are you hoping that sustainability will do for Agilico over the medium term?
So I want to reach out and get some more investment for this business, because I think there is a massive opportunity, not just in the UK, but across Europe, to disrupt what is really quite a wasteful industry, and an industry that is just operated in the same way for so many years. So I would love our existing investors to stay here, but then I would also like to go out and get some more investment, because I think there's a way of running this business in this management services industry in a much, much better way. And with your help, I want to be a leader in that. So watch this space, because I think there's an awful lot more that we can do. I just need to make sure I'm surrounded by the right people to keep educating on what is a really important subject, because I'm still a student on this. I know I've made a reasonable amount of progress, probably been a bit hard on myself, but there are people out there that know a lot more, and I just need to keep surrounding myself by people, listening to people a lot, and keep learning.
Now, you can tell me if this is something you can't talk about, because I know you're in process now for investment, but we've talked a lot about, would a strategy as clear as yours to lead in sustainability have any effect on not just the EBITDA, because you've said like you've seen an increase in core profitability, brilliant, but would it increase the other side of the equation? Are you confident that there's going to be a change in the multiple based on the work that you're doing? And obviously, as candid as you could be right now in the process.
Yeah, so there are a few hotspots for investors at the moment, and the circular economy is definitely one of them. I think a number of people rock up to investors to say, "Oh, we're operating in the circular economy space," and then when they dig deep, they really have no KPIs, no stats around this whatsoever, and they can't evidence that they are truly doing what they should be doing to be considered as a business in that circular economy space. We do have those proof points. That's this year, by the halfway through this year, the majority of devices that we sell will be recycled, refurbished devices. That will be a monumental step, and I can promise you this: we will be celebrating when we get to that point, because it really does add a huge amount of value to the business, because there are not a lot of businesses of our scale and size across Europe operating properly in the circular economy.
I guess watch this space, because I'd really be interested to know whether when you've got side-by-side investors looking at your business, whether that one will play a premium because they believe in the sustainability story and that ability to disrupt. It's been a real kind of pleasure to work with you over the last 18 months. I think certainly I've seen you sort of grab this with both hands and actually get yourself out front, really, as you said, in your industry. And I think there's probably quite an opportunity for a lot of industries to do that. There aren't that many industries that have standout leaders in sustainability. I mean, obviously, in things like cars, you see some your brands at least putting themselves in that bucket, whether you agree or not, maybe in fashion and in food. But certainly in technology, and there's a whole load of other industries that have yet to have the disruptor in this space, that there really is space to quickly get up there and lead. I think the interesting challenge is what that's going to look like going forward. As more and more people step up, which inevitably they will, particularly with all these benefits that you're talking about, people are going to want to go on that journey. One of the things I think about is how do you maintain that out front position? How do you stay a leader? I know one of the things we talked about is it's got to become more of the team, more of the people in your business have got to become experts. We need whole industries to become experts, but one of the ways to stay out in front is to continue to train and develop the team in what this means and what they can do. And I think what you've done is really good, because you've given the reins a bit to the team to do that. You're letting them put energy and passion into learning about this stuff, and they're bringing ideas to you, and you're running with them. But I think the key to maintaining that position is really by making sure the whole business goes through that journey. You've got the strategy, you've got the brand, customers are listening, suppliers are listening, but getting the whole organization there will make a big difference.
And I think making sure you never feel like you've nailed it. You never feel like you cracked it.
Yeah.
Because then you're kind of resting your laurels and then you've got a problem. Whereas, I could be learning on this for the next 10 years. And that'd be great if I am, because it will develop and evolve me as an individual, let alone the business. And I think that's a good place to be as well.
Well, I mean, maybe we can move on to some other reflections, because one of mine kind of with you has been this, as you said it yourself, started with sort of healthy skepticism. You're rightly unapologetic as a business leader. Like, the majority of your role is to grow the value business for your shareholders, right? That is your primary role. Yes, there's room for how you do it. But watching you over the last 18 months go from, this is what I should do, and feeling like this is sort of a moral obligation, to, oh no, I really want to do this because it grows my bottom line and it makes me feel even more passionate about the business, and it makes me feel like I'm contributing to some of the big challenges we're seeing in society.
Yeah. And I think when I reflect on the last 12, 18 months or so, I'm glad that I made a conscious effort to educate myself. And I did do a lot of reading. I listened to a lot of podcasts. Ellen McCarthy podcast is a really good one to listen to if anyone's interested. I did a lot of reading on this subject to try and bring myself up to a reasonable knowledge. If I'm talking to customers and suppliers about it, I never ever make out that I'm some expert in it, because I'm not. And I'll always listen to their ideas and their views. I think I've done a reasonable job of encouraging colleagues to kind of
do the same,
to do the same, but never forced it on them. In the same way, I never forced the sustainable development goals on them. I just threw it out there, really hoped that people would also want to do the right thing as well. And luckily, I've got 450 great members of staff who have really stepped up and tried to do some really good things in the business. And I think it's brilliant. And do you know what? When you've acquired a lot of businesses, sometimes you have to have that unifying factor, that thing that brings people together. And I'd probably put a strong argument together to say that this is one of those things that has really helped bring a lot of people together.
Oh, that's a really interesting reflection, because I mean we've talked about kind of increasing engagement in general with the team, and perhaps it's helping a bit with attraction, or certainly with retention. Talked about how it's helped you differentiate the customers and change it from just a commercial transaction to a much more relationship. You're kind of providing books that they might share with their kids. That it's changing things there. Some fundamental money hitting the bottom line, and a potential yet to be proven. Is there actually a higher multiple when you come to kind of get further investment? But all of these add up to quite a lot of different things that contribute quite powerfully to a business case. And working with you over 18 months, month by month, sometimes we were working a little bit more intensively. Sometimes it was just kind of checking in and sort of sharing ideas and insights. You were very good at kind of bringing questions to the table, bouncing ideas. I'd go away and kind of do some research, bring things back. I think it's not a one and done, is it? As you said, it's very much a kind of long-term journey that can kind of be incremental. But as soon as you kind of make that switch to believing that it can be incorporated in a core strategy, the opportunities come quite easily. Would be doing it a disservice, but they become quite obvious. There's quite a lot of things you can do quite quickly. Certainly you could do quite quickly in your business to add value, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We are, we've contributed to a number of the sustainable development goals already, but there's so much more to do. That will never stop. It can't stop. And as I say, if we think we cracked it, we've made a mistake, because we just need to keep improving.
No, and that's a really good point, actually. You don't become sustainable, you become more sustainable, right? There's still impacts everywhere we look. Well, I want to make sure there's good room for questions. But are there any other reflections you want to share before we move to Q&A?
No, I think probably good.
Probably the bulk of it.
Yeah, brilliant. Exactly. Maybe ask some questions if we can.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we've got just over 15 minutes for that. James, I think you're going to help us a bit with Q&A. Have we got anyone who wants to come on and actually ask a question, or should we just start running through I could see quite a few questions coming in Q&A as we went. Are you there, James? You might be on.
Yeah, I am there. I was just checking if there's anyone who wants to come on, but I think we can start with reading some out. Okay. That's going from Elsa. quite early on. I think you did touch this a little bit, Simon, later on, but it's a nice question indeed. Like, she's particularly interested in the process of creation of a business case for sustainability, especially for companies sort of small to medium size, and especially companies that are not in the manufacturing focus, but more IT focused, and people are not manufacturing their own equipment, and not necessarily why, not necessarily what the business case is, but what's the process for actually making a business case itself. I think you touched on earlier that it's great for employees and great for bringing people on, and it brings people together. But also, how do you go about doing that, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, I think the start point is talking to your staff about wanting to try and make a contribution towards some of these goals and make the business better at the same time. And if it's a small business and there are 10 staff in it or 20 staff in it, it doesn't really matter. But if there are 20 brains maybe thinking about the sustainable development goals and in the context of their own business, and to really think deeply about kind of what products they're purchasing and why they're purchasing them, how they're going to market with ideas. I think if one idea comes out of a session where you're trying to contribute towards the goals and make your business better, then that's a worthwhile exercise.
Brilliant. Got a couple here from Aaron. Aaron said it'd be really interested in understanding, if you've done any and if you know the data, the fault rate comparisons with doing these sort of non-conventional new devices. And if on those you offer a like-for-like warranty compared to the more conventional new route.
We offer the same warranty. So we're that we are that confident. In fact, we even said to customers, we can swap these machines out. If it fails, and it hasn't, we'll swap it out. That's how confident we are. So these machines are so robust. And actually, this is important. I probably should have mentioned it earlier. When we take the devices, we have done so much testing on which devices are best to refurbish. So the highest quality devices are those devices that we are refurbishing, because there are some devices out there that aren't quite good enough to be refurbished. So we've done so much, again, through the brilliant engineers that we have done so much testing to make sure that these devices can withstand over 3, 4, 5 years, that we are just really confident in when those devices leave our workshops. And I think that was an important part of the research that we had to do, because we tested a number of different devices to assess which were best, and now we know the answers. And we have a really solid supply chain. In fact, the supply chain now is such that if I wanted to flip to 100% recycled devices, I could. But you have to do that research in the first place to make sure that the products that you're remanufacturing and putting back out are solid. And Aaron, I'm very, very confident.
Brilliant. Leah asks, as part of your offering to the customer, do you also offer to take away their legacy equipment, and are you able to monetize that in any way?
It depends who owns the equipment, but yes, we can take away the equipment. Often customers ask us to remove them. Often if those devices are leased, they obviously have to get an agreement from the lease company for those devices to be taken away and removed. Often, some of the devices that we receive are not, in fact, most that we receive are not worth anything. Because there's so much effort to go into refurbishing them, but we can actually take those, Leah, from customers when they want us to, so long as we get agreement from the ultimate owner of the equipment.
Very cool. Another one from Aaron, actually. Do you believe if you have the right model in place and need investment to scale, and also what's your opinion on the limitation of scaling the sustainability arm of your business?
So I thought the limitation would be supply. So I was initially skeptical that there wasn't enough supply for me to build a large-scale business across the UK. Now, we sell about 5,000 devices a year. In the UK, there are about 200,000 that get sold in the UK. Now, some of those won't be in a good enough state to be able to remanufacture, but a good proportion will. So there is no shortage of supply for a business that has the right engineering teams across the UK, and the right facilities to be able to do it. It has to be done at scale for this to work. So, we probably have 30 people around the country dedicated to refurbishing devices. In practice, it might be nearer 40, but just dedicated to making sure we can refurbish these devices to a high standard and harvesting the parts that we can where the machines can't be refurbished. It's a big part of the business.
Brilliant. Question from Tony. So you've spoken about the huge tangible benefits this is delivering in your managed print division, but do you see a similar business case as an opportunity within the IT/software and telecoms side of things?
Yeah, so actually the telecoms one is an interesting one because we sell our own hosted telephony software. And we're saying to customers, yes, look, we can provide you with physical handsets if you want, but that carries plastic. So actually we should be using kind of soft phones, use your iPads or your laptops, your mobiles that you have. I don't think you necessarily need a desk on your phone as well. So we're increasingly taking this to the other divisions as well. I think that was from Tony. So hopefully that makes sense, Tony.
Brilliant. Another from Elsa, actually. It's a bit different tangent. Can I ask about renewable electricity? Are you purchasing renewable electricity certificates? Do small and medium businesses even have the consumption needed to engage in the power purchase agreements? And aside from installing renewable on site, certificates seem to be the only way for businesses to, I guess, offset the usage. So is that something that you guys haven't thought about at all yet, or are doing?
I'm sure our facilities guy would have every single answer to those questions. I don't know, to be perfectly honest, Elsa. And as I said during the call, I know a reasonable amount on this subject, but that specifically is probably something for our facilities team. But if you want me to go away and find out the answers and come back to you, that's not a throwaway comment, by the way. I'll talk to our team and I can email you separately if that's okay.
It's a very interesting one. And so far, the last one we've got at the moment is from Kate. In a large organisation, how do you build and demonstrate simplicity into this approach? So it doesn't fall into the, and I quote, too complex bucket for a large organisation. Maybe a big company that you think they always do. Like,
do you know what? That is a great question, because when I picked this up and Anthony started talking to me about it, it just felt like such a big subject to get my arms around. And it'd be like going to write a dissertation. If someone said, "Can you write a dissertation on sustainability?" you wouldn't know. You just wouldn't know where to start, would you? You have to pick. You have to be more precise and pick certain subjects within it. And I think that's what we very quickly had to try and do with Anthony's help. So when Anthony said, "Look at the Sustainable Development Goals," we almost used that as a bit of a framework. And we said, okay, these are the 17 goals. Although we could look out much more broadly than that if we wanted to, these actually are a really good starting point. So, to the staff, if you want to contribute to one of these 17 goals, have a think about it, come up with some ideas, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll see if we can launch something. And if that felt like the simplest way to be able to launch this concept to the business. Because I completely get what you're saying, Kate. It feels like a massive subject, and I did honestly think as well, where on earth do we start with this? But so therefore, Anthony's help in saying, like, here's a framework, here's a set of goals you might want to work to, is probably a good starting point. And then I also didn't put a time limit on kind of when we had to contribute to all 17 goals, because I just think that would be too tough, and that's unusual for me, because I'm known for setting quite tight deadlines and quite ambitious targets. But I felt like if I did that too soon, that would put off a lot of people, and I just really wanted people to kind of grab a hold of the line and start wanting to participate. And the fact that we made a meaningful contribution to 4 or 5 goals already is a case in point, I think. So I would say, Kate, don't try and do too much too quickly, and focus maybe, or use the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework to get started. Anthony, if you want to add anything to that.
Well, actually, yeah, I think there's a whole load of things, right? Because I think that the challenges you laid out quite well is none of us are experts in this when we wake up in the day. You know, everyone's running their own businesses. They're experts in either their field or their industry. I think that the benefit sometimes of working together with other parties is you can kind of one of the things we pride ourselves on is bringing in frameworks, bringing in perspectives, bringing sort of useful mechanisms to see this through that can slightly simplify it or give you some kind of methodology. There's been quite a lot done in this space, but it's quite fragmented. The knowledge and the insights are kind of spread around, and part of our job is to bring that to the table and sort of help leaders like Simon sort of hold this up and go, well, does this looking through the SDGs, for example, does that help you think about how to approach this? We talk about the circular economy a lot. It's quite well defined, the circular economy, and every industry will need to go through some kind of transformation with that. And you can kind of look layer by layer at the circular economy and say, well, does that apply? Could that help us start our journey? And I think probably more than anything, for most organizations, the hardest part is that starting the journey from ESG is something we kind of do on the side, or sustainability to making it a core strategy. And that step, I'm particularly proud that we've worked on together, Simon, to kind of to take that step, because it's not quite a switch, but once you have a pathway, once you can see it as part of your strategy, the energy starts to become behind it, the focus comes behind it, you start to see some of the benefits, and then you can look at lots of different tools and mechanisms to change things, but it will build its own momentum quite quickly. You just got to be confident that you have got some support in the wings to kind of help you on your journey, I suppose.
Yeah, agreed. There's a question that's come through from Ben. Yeah, sorry, Joe, I've just seen that question from Ben. It's a great question, actually. So, given that sustainability is becoming a requirement for some investment funds, changes in requirements for levels of sustainable equipment in tenders, etc., do you think we would ever get to the stage where reman goods would end up costing the buyer more so they can claim they're a more sustainable organisation? Or will the business case always be underpinned by financial motivation to take sustainable options? What a brilliant question that is. So I think right now, some buyers need a financial motivation because they're still a little bit skeptical. Okay, so we're doing all we can to absolutely convince them for the right reasons that these machines are being re-engineered and they are as good as new. Okay, but to make sure that the customer takes that step forward, they are sold currently at a slightly lower price point. Now, interestingly, some people on the sales teams thought it'd be a much cheaper, much lower price point than it is. But we're saying, look, if you believe that, it means you are undervaluing the engineering effort to go through this process. So you need to respect all that hard work that has been done in the warehouses and in the engineering teams to remanufacture this equipment. Do I think it will ever be more expensive than new? No, I don't. But will there be a large delta between the two? Probably not, because there is a huge amount of effort that goes into remanufacturing equipment. And
so I'll only add one thing to that, and something for people to think over the longer term. We live on a planet of limited resources. Okay, so whether or not remanufactured will be cheaper or more expensive, what we can expect is prices to continue to rise. And certainly at IT, we use a lot of kind of rare metals and minerals. We're getting quite close to running some of those out. Now, we're pretty innovative as a species. We'll find alternatives to begin with. But over time, we can expect the commodity prices and therefore the cost of the devices that we sell in the technology sector to go up quite quickly as availability comes down. And there may come a point where actually, there'll be greater availability of remanufactured devices. We saw this during COVID than there is of new products. And in that environment, when demand exceeds supply, you can see some interesting things happen from a price point of view. But I broadly agree with Simon, but I think the price of all things will go up because we're going to consume the resources faster than we can. Oh, we obviously can't replace them, right? Brilliant. Are there any other questions from anyone? Very happy to take any more.
And Elsa, I promise I'll come back to you separately on your question around renewable energy.
Well, brilliant. Well, firstly, thank you so much for spending a bit of the morning with us. Look, obviously, as an organisation, that we're here to help organisations that want to go on this journey. If you feel free to reach out if you want to get started. That scary bit at the beginning. How to get your head around the business case. We'll be very willing to help. And equally, of course, if you're looking for sustainability from a workplace technology point of view, you could go do a lot worse than working with Agilico. So look, thank you very much for your time. I'm glad you're finding it helpful. Thank you for the notes. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.